Okay. Do I actually have a timer? Is this a hard stop? Is someone gonna like throw a ball at me? Okay. 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 What's up, people? My name is Jayson Gaddis, and I am a relationship psychotherapist here in town that deals with couples and individuals who want to go deeper in relationship. And one of the core challenges of us people in relationship, both at work with our business partners and at home in our families and our marriages and with our kids, is boundaries. So, my presentation, how to set a boundary, the path to more agency in relationship. This is plan B, by the way. I'll tell you about plan A later. So I see this as, from my experience, one of the top 3 relationship issues in human beings. Codependency, boundaries, and trying to change other people, which is ultimately a trap. So we're going to focus on boundaries for this 5 minutes. Why bother, though? Well, if we're going to live in and work in and talk about the community that Marco and Greg and Robert are talking about, we got to know about boundaries. When you have clear boundaries, I can relax more. When you're clear about where you stand and what's happening for you, it helps me be more fully myself. And all of us are really served when someone has clear boundaries, especially kids. I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. It is boundary fest all day long with them. So what is a boundary? Personal boundaries from this website are the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental limits we establish to protect ourselves from being manipulated, used, or violated by others. It's real, it happens. They allow us to separate who we are and what we think and feel from the thoughts and feelings of others. We could spend another hour on that definition alone. So I'm just going to talk quickly about 3 types of boundaries: rigid, porous, and dynamic. What we're going for here is dynamic, people, so that when you walk home tonight, you're going to have a sense of what dynamic boundaries are. Rigid being kind of like, well, I'll go into that in a second here. So examples of porous boundaries. Now, I've experienced both in my life. I had a mom and dad who set it up so that I had very porous boundaries on one side and very rigid boundaries on the other. So that's living inside of me. So porous is like when we don't want to call our parents back, we stay on the phone with them and we abandon ourselves and we talk anyway. When we need space or alone time in our intimate relationship and our partner asks us to hang out and we say, okay, honey, and we never have time for ourselves, or we're preoccupied with others, and our relationship style is typically conflict avoidant, fearful of being left. Examples of rigid boundaries: pushing people away, leave me alone, back off. Typically, these people are scared of someone invading or violating their space or them as a person. When someone's behavior throws you off your predictable routine, you might get angry or anxious. And this person's relationship style is fearful of invasion, engulfment, or being taken advantage of. So that's me, both spectrums, porous, rigid. It's a lot to be with, right? It's intense. And then the cost of not setting these boundaries, if I go with no boundaries and I'm all over the place, I betray myself, I resent you, I perpetuate blame, and I'm just going to blame you ultimately, hold you responsible. I'm going to send the message that I can't take care of myself, and I'm going to invite caretaking behavior toward me. And then I love this one because we rob others the opportunity to grow when I refuse to set boundaries. And then ultimately I just keep avoiding, and then I blow up. The benefit, of course, to setting boundaries is that I have greater personal freedom, which supports personal agency, sovereignty, and differentiation, which is what we're going for here. It diminishes blaming, and I'm typically, when I tell my wife, honey, I'm not available right now, I am always, more often than not, I'll say, available after I have taken care of myself and set that boundary. And remember, most of us grew up with confusing boundaries, and again, boundaries help children feel safe. And because we grew up with confusing boundaries, it's no wonder that people struggle all the time. Why is it so hard to set a boundary? Because mostly here, we're unable to be with our experience, right? When I see you upset because I set a boundary and you freak out and you get mad at me or you get really pissed off or sad or whatever, I then have to feel my upset, which is really terrifying, especially if the ultimate fear here is that I'm going to lose relationship with you and you're going to cut me off. So that's running at the deepest level in me, is a fear of abandonment, rejection, and ultimately losing relationship and then being alone and helpless. And if we were honest with ourselves, that's typically at the bottom for most of us. So it's that simple, really, that we're unable and unwilling to be with our experience. So what do? Be keenly aware of what we've always done, know our habits and patterns. We can't really change it until we see it. Make a choice to do this one differently by putting myself before you, and tell my loved ones that I'm going to be working on this one, and heads up, I'm going to need help, and here it is, this is what I'm going to be doing. So we're getting into the how that you can take home tonight with your kids, partner, etc. And then ready, aim, fire, with a trembling, open heart and leading with my vulnerability, right? Like, honey, I'm scared to say this to you right now. I'm like shaking, actually, because it's this scary for me. I need space. I'd rather be alone. And then I go walk away and I go feel my feelings, specifically the unwanted ones, having set my boundary. That's the whole purpose. If I don't go do that, the loop keeps going, period. So then the person, my wife, let's say, tries to say, no, like, let's talk about this. Like, I want to get into this right now. It calls for another boundary. Absolutely not. I'm not ready, willing, or prepared to deal. I need to go be with what's arising in my experience. And I go do that. And then having taken space, I get back to feeling everything, all the way down, in my man cave, in my outside in nature, wherever I want to go, therapy, etc. And then I commit to staying in relationship throughout the entire process. So I give her a heads up, or I give you the heads up that, hey, I'm coming back. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I need X amount of time. But we stay in relationship. The rigid boundary types, of course, cut people off, right? Fuck off. I'm not talking to you anymore. Examples of the dynamic boundary setting. I love you. I care. I'm not available right now. I hear that that upsets you, and I'm committed to being true to myself right now versus working this out. And I'm happy to process later.